All right. Good morning, guys. My name is Perla. I'm a double gold consultant and IATAN card holder. And today we're going to talk all about flights. We're going to talk about different airlines, what their fare means, their airline fare means, what's included, what's not included, and what's really important for you to present to your client when you are either doing a flight only or if you're bundling it with a package. So we kind of got to feel a little bit, and there's a little bit of both, where some people are really well versed in the flights and kind of what to present to clients, and they're familiar with, the flight information. And then there's others that are newer and not really too sure, and that's perfectly fine. So I really hope, regardless of whichever stage you're in, you learn something new. I do have like a little cheat sheet for you guys that I kind of created, and I'll kind of go over that with you guys as well. So if you think about it, when you're presenting a quote to a client, right, you want to be all inclusive. You want to include everything, right? Because you know that when you send over this quote or when you send over this proposal to your client, they're going to come at you with questions, right? Whether if that quote is just for a hotel, if it's for a package, if it's for a car rental, flight only, whatever it is, they're going to ask you some questions. And a lot of the things they may ask you is like, oh, what's included? Do I have a carry-on? Do I have a checked bag? Am I allowed a personal item? Can I select my seats? And so just to give you a little bit of a background and slash perspective. So when I started about 2.5 years ago, I really had no experience in the travel industry or what the different fares meant for the flights. I had to actually go and learn myself, right? And I learned, and actually all the information I'm going to give to you today, I got directly from the source, so directly from the airline website. I realized that as a travel agent, when I first started as a travel agent, people were coming to me not only just to get them a good deal, but also for the service, right? They were coming to me for a service that they were not able to receive elsewhere. They couldn't get it on Expedia, Priceline, Travelocity, right? So me knowing that, I had to then tell myself, okay, if they're coming to me for a service, then I need to provide them this exceptional service so that way they can continue coming back to me and potentially refer other people, right? So knowing all of that, what does that tell you? That tells you, okay, I need to provide my client with all this information, right? So as a travel agent, our responsibility to do the research, it's our responsibility to know what we're presenting to our client. We cannot send them information and just kind of hope and pray that they don't have any questions, or that they hope and pray that they know what it is that they're paying for, because it has happened where people will end up booking with an agent and they assume, oh, I have a carry-on, or, oh, I'm able to select my seats. And then what happens? They're not seated with their family, or they now have to pay for a carry-on that they thought was included in their fare. Okay, so it's very, very important, and it's our own individual responsibilities to provide our client with this information. However you want to provide it to them is going to be your decision, because we are all independent contractors. We can decide how we want to do that. Okay. So the very same way, a lot of the information I'm going to share with you, not only is it going to apply to the airlines, but it's also going to apply to really anything else like hotel, car rental, all those things, right? So especially for hotels, there may be a lot of hotels or resorts that have a resort fee, right? You want to disclose that to your client. You want to tell them, yes, there's the resort fee, $35 a day. Okay, what does that resort fee include? Okay, is it worth it? Is your client going to want to pay the $35 a day? Is there parking? Is there a parking fee? Is there a continental breakfast? Or if not, okay, this is how much you have to pay. So in the very same way that you are investigating and researching all this information about the hotels, the very same thing you have to do for flights, okay? Just so that way you're being 100% transparent with your client, and There's no gray area, there's nothing that's unsure. So then that way, when your client checks in or when your client, shows up for their flight, there's no surprise fees, there's no surprises. Okay. So makes sense? Let me know if that makes sense, guys. Perfect. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let me share with you what I created last night. And just as a reminder, okay, this information that I'm going to share with you, it's not all inclusive, okay? I cannot sit and literally put down every single airline on here because it would take forever. So I literally just did some popular airlines, what's included, what types of fares they have, what's included in their baggage, whether if it's personal item carry-on or if some additional bags are included, and then some additional features, like some highlights to that particular fare, okay? Something that's good to know, all right? Because we're going to gather all of this information when we're initially qualifying our client, we're going to ask them these questions about their airfare, right? Do they have an airline preference? Okay, that's going to be kind of like number one. Then like number two, okay, are you flexible? Like, do you want like carry on? Do you want personal item? Whereas if someone, when you're qualifying them, and if they're like, I just want the cheapest thing possible, okay, well, what's that going to tell you? Maybe let's offer them Spirit of Frontier, right? That's going to typically almost always going to be the cheaper option. There's literally nothing included in that fare other than just a personal item. There's no carry-on, there's no seat selection, it's non-refundable. It works for some people, right? They're good with paying less than $100 sometimes for a round trip. But they need to know, okay, you're going to get there cheaper. Your fare is going to be cheaper, but you're going to be hit with all these fees if you want to carry on, if you want a checked bag. So it's very, very important to disclose all that information. And that's kind of what I just did here. So I'll kind of show you where I got all this information from. Obviously, each airline is going to be different. As you can see, United has so many different fares. Can you guys see this okay? Is it too small? Is that better? Maybe that's better. Okay, perfect. Good. Perfect. Yes, let me share this with you. Okay. Let me know if you are unable to open it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, so that way we can have an idea of what, oh wait, do you guys have to request access to it? Requesting access. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. Let me, all right. Don't request access anymore. Give me 1 second. All right. So let me do that. Okay. How about now? Good. Okay. I see you guys coming in. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up Vax. That's one that pretty much everybody has access to. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to pull up Vax because I want to just show you guys the different like for a flight, like if we're just going to do a flight. Okay. Just so you can see, I'm sure that you guys are familiar with how it looks like, but so that you can see kind of like the breakdown of the fares. So we're just going to do from Let's just do like we're going to go to convention. And we're going to do the 30th to the 4th. Okay. Yes, Julie, thank you for saying that. Make sure everyone, you just save a copy to it. Do not change anything that's on there. I don't believe that you will be able to change anything. You can certainly make a copy. And then if you ever run into an additional airline, like obviously, like I said, it's not an all-inclusive cheat sheet. You're not going to find Hawaiian Airlines. You're not going to find, I don't think I put Alaska. Oh, I did put Alaska. Hawaiian Airlines, Air Portugal, Qatar, like all those like other ones you're not going to find on here, but if you ever run into utilizing that airline, definitely feel free to make a copy of this and then just add it down to the bottom. So that way this is the original. And then you guys then have essentially like your own personal copy with airlines that you're dealing with most frequently. Okay. All right. Perfect. Oh, you're welcome, Kelly. Okay, so let's do like pretend we're going to convention. Okay, so you see the most cheapest one that's going to come up, Spirit. But this is not cheap for Spirit. Oh wait, no, it's for two people. Okay, 718. Sorry, I thought it was per person. I thought it was 718 per person. Okay, so 360 per person. That's still pretty expensive for Spirit. Spirit and Frontier are typically like the cheaper options. So you see that for Spirit, it's just on you coach. Right? There's no other option here. Okay. Whereas if you go down to United, you see all these different options. Basic economy, here's another economy full refundable, economy plus fully refundable. Okay, so if we go to our sheet and if we look at Spirit, obviously Spirit, I only have economy because that's going to be the only option, economy or coach, right? Those are going to be used interchangeably. They're only going to be allowed one personal item. That's it. Not even a carry-on, not even a check bag. They can't even select their seats, nothing, okay? It's going to be a non-refundable fare. Seat selection is not included. They do have, I guess, Spirit's version of first class, which they're just larger seats. Rather than it being 3 seats in a row, it'll be actually 2 and they'll just be a lot wider. They actually do look really comfy, but those bigger seats are typically anywhere from like $60 to $100 per seat each way. Okay. So just be mindful, right? Because whether if you're booking flights for yourself or for a client, sometimes, and this just been my experience, guys, because I definitely have flown Spirit and I definitely have flown Frontier. Okay. No check bags either, Julie. Yeah, no check bags. So yes, it's cheaper, but if you do the math, you almost always, and at least in my experience, you almost always end up spending way more money booking with the cheaper budget airline because of all the fees. You want to select your seats, you want to carry on, and you want a check bag. Well, look at all the fees in comparison to, okay, let me just pay a little bit more upfront for an airline that's going to at least offer me a carry-on. You know what I mean? At least the carry-on is included in the fare. So you just a perspective thing, right? And that's just something you won't know until you actually experience it yourself, and you won't know unless if maybe you learn it right now and then can relay that to your client. So for example, I had some clients that went to Tulum, Mexico in April, and she told me, I don't want to spend that much money in flights. I definitely want it to be cost effective. Okay, so we bundled flights and all-inclusive resort together. It was for a family of 7. And I got them a really good deal, but they were flying with Frontier. And I let her know, like, hey, I normally don't recommend Spirit or Frontier for X, Y, and Z reason, right? Cheaper fare, but you're going to be paying fees for a carry-on and check bags. You're most likely not going to be able to be seated together. So most likely, you're going to be paying more money out of pocket, like at the airport or maybe during check-in, versus if we just book you with United or JetBlue or something on a fare that includes those amenities, right? She understood that and she's like, I appreciate you telling me that, but I'm perfectly okay with Frontier. Okay, cool. no worries. But at least I let her know and she was aware, right? She otherwise wouldn't have known that because she had never flown Frontier before. But she was appreciative of the information that I relayed to her. But I only knew that just based off of my experience, my family's experience, and just from doing this now for 2.5 years, I've been looking at different airlines frequently for clients or for myself, that I'm able to kind of remember what I learned. Okay. So let's say we're gonna look at Spirit. So do not be afraid. Go to Google, go to the airline website. Okay. This is where I got all the information that I know and all the information that's on that cheat sheet. Okay. So for Spirit in particular, you're going to go to travel info. You'll go to seats. And Spirit doesn't have onboard Wi-Fi. That's another thing too. A lot of the like, not, I don't want to say like the other airlines, the newer planes and stuff, they may have then complimentary Wi-Fi. Spirit, you have to pay for Wi-Fi. Frontier, you have to pay. There has been I think United, I think one time I had to pay for Wi-Fi, but I was on an older plane that just did not have the Wi-Fi capability, so you could pay for it. All the other times I've flown with all these different airlines, Wi-Fi was included. So you see here what I mean about the big front seat. So you see all the rows back here, there's going to be 3 per row, and they're like really small seats on cardboard, basically is what it feels like. Now the big front seat, it's a wider seat. It's like their version of like a first class. It's not that you're going to have like meals or anything like that included, but at least you're paying essentially for the comfort. So if we look down here, different seat types, right? You basically have the big front seat that you pay a little extra for, the exit row, which you end up getting a little extra legroom, and then just the main cabin, which essentially is then just going to be the economy coach. So essentially exit row and main cabin are all going to still be economy coach, but the exit row, you just have a little bit extra legroom. And that's it. You're not going to see any different fares or anything like that. There's no drinks, there's no snacks included, nothing like that, like some of the other airlines. So these are the bigger front seats. And then these are the basic seats. Okay. There's no, or this is the exit row, I'm sorry. And then, but it's basically the regular type of seats, but you cannot recline on the seats. There's no like give, so, but I will say when I went to Dominican Republic just like 2 weeks ago, my father-in-law actually treated us to this trip, and so I really had no say in the airline, unfortunately, and it was with Spirit. But I will say that actually in this flight experience, it was good actually. I think it may have been a newer plane because the leg room definitely was a lot more than what I had experienced in the past. The service was good. I had no issues with the service, but essentially kind of what people are saying in the comments, it's uncomfortable for a longer flight. If it's a short flight, maybe an hour, 2 hours, no problem. But this was close to 4, almost 5 hours. So it's uncomfortable. There's no snacks other than, or drinks other than water. So realize how restrictive it is, essentially is what I'm saying. Okay. Now, if we're going to compare United, okay, and I guess you can kind of group Spirit and Frontier under the same umbrella. Essentially, it's going to be the same thing in terms of only one personal item. There's no carry-on, there's no check bags, seat selection's not included. They do offer, changes and cancellations, but there's fees included in there as well. So they're going to be the cheaper, budget-friendly airlines, but they're just going to be the most restrictive. Okay. Now, if we go to United, comparing the other flight, now you see it's an additional, either 234, but this would then just be the basic economy. Sometimes United will have, let's see if it will. No, here, let me just do this. So if for whatever reason you can't find it directly from the airline website, the different fares, just type in Google the name of the airline and then the fare that you're seeing. So this one says basic economy. Now these letters that you see here, those are like I was going to include this in the cheat sheet, but I realized that there's so many different letters that I felt like, okay, this is going to be very, very time consuming. This essentially is like the type of fare for the airline. So if it's like a restrictive fare, if it's a refundable fare, if it's an upgraded fare, that's kind of like their coding, I guess I should say, or their way to know if that's like their way of knowing exactly all the different restrictions on their end, essentially. But I didn't want to get into that. I felt like that was going to be too much, so I figured let's just stick to the fares. So like I said, basic economy, when you pull it up now, here it's telling you save on your ticket price. You're going to have the same in-flight services as standard economy, like drinks, snacks, in-flight entertainment, but there's going to be some restrictions. Okay, so you'll still have essentially the same type of seats. So it's not that you're going to have like sitting on cardboard. You're going to have the same type of seats as the regular economy, but there's just going to be some additional restrictions in comparison, right? So if we look at United, basic economy, so you see here this line, it's restrictive because they're only getting one personal item. They're not even getting a carry-on. It's the most restrictive fare, carry-on's not included, seat selection is not included. And we get that if we scroll down, right? So here are bags, personal item, carry-on's not included, unless if you're traveling to these countries. Okay, so make sure that you're reading the little fine print or little exceptions, because sometimes on the restrictive fares, they do not allow carry-on, but they will allow it if you are traveling like a longer flight or international type travel. Okay, and same thing with check bags. So check bags are obviously not included, but unless if you're traveling across the Pacific, then you do get one free check bag in that price. Okay, so there are some exceptions to their rules as well. Okay. You can then also calculate their baggage fees. So in my experience, what I have learned, baggage fees in terms of the first check bag usually can sometimes range anywhere from $30 to $45 or $50, depending on the airline. Now, Spirit and Frontier are going to be the exception, because their carry-on is more expensive than their checked bag. So it doesn't make sense to get a carry-on if you might as well just get a check bag. It's cheaper. Something else to also just keep a mental note, and just either for yourself or for clients, it's cheaper if for whatever reason they want to add on bags, if they want to add a carry-on or a checked bag. It's better for them to do that prior to the airport than by doing it at the airport and paying at the airport. They're going to save a little bit more money if they just do it online. Seat assignments, you are not able to select any seat assignments, not even if you wanted to pay. They won't allow you to. They will select those seats for you. Okay. Changes and cancellations, they're not allowed. You can cancel and receive a refund within 24 hours of booking. Typically, pretty much I would say all airlines will offer that within 24 hours of booking that airline fare. You are able to cancel and receive a refund. But if you cancel after those 24 hours, then it tells you here partial travel credit. Okay. This will be last boarding. So like boarding group 6. You can check in through the website or the app, things like that. All right. So you see all the different restrictions. If we keep scrolling down, then there's economy. Obviously, L and T, those are just difference. You see there's just the difference in price a little bit. And like I said, that's just a little coding for the airline to know what additional restrictions there may be. Economy fully refundable, economy plus. And if we look economy plus here, now we have that or that carry-on, I'm sorry. They have a little bit of extra leg room. They're seated in the front of the economy section. So right where the economy section starts, that's where economy plus will be seated. So keep in mind when I have this on the guide, I'm starting it with the most basic restrictive fare and I'm going upwards, right? So even though I don't have, like, for example, on some of these, I may not have everything that the previous fare includes, but essentially it's going to include, so like, for example, United Premium Plus is going to include basically everything that United Economy does as well. So like the seat selection, they have the complimentary, now this is a step above, right? They have the complimentary meal and drink services, semi-private seating, priority check-ins. So they have a little bit more premium type things. But you can see that like, for example, specifically for Southwest. Southwest, you will notice every single one of their fares includes a carry-on, a personal item, plus 2 bags fly free. Okay. The difference with them, you'll see, are the first two, Want to Get Away and Want to Get Away Plus. They're both non-refundable, but the Want to Get Away Plus does offer free same-day confirmed changes, whereas the Want to Get Away, just has, well, they're pretty much actually the same, actually, now that I think about it. The difference is that the Want to Get Away Plus does offer a transferable flight credit. So meaning you can then transfer that flight credit basically to somebody else. Anytime is refundable. Business Select, refundable. You have priority boarding. So you'll be able to sit between rows 1 and 15. Free in-flight internet. So if you're not familiar with Southwest, Southwest does not do prior seat selections. They basically kind of let you pick your seat when you get there. And it's like kind of like a free-for-all. So obviously the more restrictive the fare, so Want to Get Away, you'll be boarded last, right? So all these other fares are going to be boarded ahead of you. So when you get onto the plane, you kind of have to pick a seat that's open, right? Whereas either Anytime and Business Select, you're kind of one of the first ones to get on the plane. You can then have access to something closer, or if you really want a window seat or an aisle seat, something like that. Okay, so each airline, I think this is the only airline that does that. I don't know if someone wants to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Southwest is the only airline that allows that, essentially does not do seat selections. They, like, for all fares, you basically just kind of pick when you get there. And if you're traveling with a group, in my experience, you can have, like, someone was able to kind of go ahead. They were in a like a early boarding, and then they were able to kind of like set aside 1 or 2 seats for their party. So just good information to know, right? So does this make sense? Like, when you're looking at this, you're seeing, okay, what are the restrictions? No change fees for Delta for main cabin economy, whereas first class, you're getting those 2 free checked bags, wider seats, priority boarding, all those things. A lot of these higher fares are going to include access to their airport lounges, or I think it was actually United, has like a exclusive like airport lounge or something like that you can like access with like first, Polaris, business class, things like that. So it's important to know all this information, right? So when we look at this, we see all these that are here, okay? Basic economy, that's going to be, it tells you right here, non-refundable, basic economy fare, changes, upgrades, seat selection is not available. You can then see all restrictions, which VAX will then take you over to United and you'll be able to see. But very, very important to know all this information prior to presenting to your client, because they're going to ask you all of these questions. So I don't know if there's another airline. No, it's just Spirit and United. So we can maybe look at Let's do one that's not on my cheat sheet. And then we can look at it together. And go from there. All right, so here's United again. United, let's see if there's another airline. Okay, here's SWR Swiss. Okay, so I don't have that on the cheat sheet, obviously. So we're gonna look up SWR Swiss. Oh. And I'll show you kind of how I get this information. So these are the three different fares: Eco Light, Eco Standard, Eco Flex. Okay, so let's do Eco Light. Oh, I put Evo, whoops. Eco Light. So that seems to be then obviously their economy. So Swiss economy. All right, so let's kind of see here for Europe. You can choose from the fares Flex, Classic, and Light. Okay, so here's Flex. All right, well, no, we're looking at Light. Let's go to Light first. Okay, Light benefits. You have hand luggage, one item weighing up to 8 kilograms included. Members will receive miles. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to mention as well for members. I did not include this in here because each airline is particular, and each airline, obviously, as you guys may know, has their own like airline credit card or point system or members, whatever. So a lot of them have the credit cards, a lot of them have like a members type points, rewards, or whatever. So when you, depending on the fare, there are some, and I think I put this on one, Alaska. For Alaska Saver, so it's the most restricted fare, they have limited mileage benefits. So essentially meaning that if they were trying to earn miles on this particular booking under Saver, it'll just be limited. Whatever the restrictions are with Alaska, you should then just kind of follow up on that if for whatever reason you have someone on Alaska Airlines and they're booking Saver. Whereas for main and first class, they'll then have the mileage plan benefits or the mileage plan elite benefits. So they may earn maybe more points per mile traveled or something like that. So how it has here, miles flown equals miles earned, whereas on Saver it doesn't. So some of them, that's why I always ask if they have an airline preference, because some clients may be frequent flyers with United, and so they may want to accrue miles, or they may want to use their United credit card or something of the sort, right? So I always ask that for that reason. Now, just remember that if your client has miles that they're trying to apply to a booking, like a flight booking, we're not able to do that, unfortunately. That's going to be only on their own accord. They can do that. It's going to be on their account, that they'll be able to see how many miles they can redeem for a flight. Okay. I know, or same thing with like a flight credit. If there's a flight credit, they have to essentially do that. Because think about it, it's going to be under their account. There's no way for us to pull up their account under our vendors. You can certainly put in their membership number, right? A lot of our vendors will allow you to put that, like a frequent flyer membership, things like that. But if we're looking to actually redeem those benefits, redeem those perks, things like that, we won't be able to. Okay, so just so you guys are aware if you were not aware ahead of time. So Eco Light on Swiss seems to be the most restrictive. It seems like they still will have meals. This will take you over to like their meal info. So now if we look at Eco Standard, right, this obviously must include some additional things, right? If it's an additional $502 more. So eco standard, which I would assume would be their classic. So you see how like the names sometimes don't match up. So it's light, standard, flex, but here they have light, classic, flex. So you could, I would assume that the standard would be the classic. Okay, so Swiss, so Savers, Savours, however you say it, that would then be their meals. So they would have meals too. They'd have hand baggage plus checked bag included. Okay, miles, seat reservation, rebooking for a charge. So you see how they have now a little bit more, right? Obviously, it's $502 more than the basic one. So, or no, not 502. Is it like 400 something dollars more? So, but you can see here, it is going to give them so much more. Okay. Yes, I was just going to say that, Betty. I just noticed that too. It does say the standard right next to it. And then flex. Okay, so this obviously is significantly more expensive than the other two. And obviously you see why. They have their hand baggage, they have a checked bag, they're getting additional, they'll be able to earn additional miles. They have seat reservation, priority boarding, preferred zone, rebooking, cancellation for a charge, plus they can also change to an earlier flight on the same day. So now you can see, so that's typically what I do. I will pull up the airline on another site and I'll look to see what's the comparison between these fares and then go from there and see, okay, what's going to be the best option for my client based on our conversation. So when I'm presenting the information to my client, I will present them obviously the airline name, the fare name. So if they're going to go on this flight to Geneva, I'm going to say Eco Light or Eco Standard or Eco Classic or Eco Flex. And then I will do a little drop down and I will say what's included in that fare and what's not included, especially for the most basic type of fares. So like the basic economy, the lights, the economy or the coaches, I will always tell them what's included and then what's not included, because I just personally have run into clients still asking questions or still wondering, is seat selection included or whatever? And I was like, well, it's not listed there, so it's not included. So I'd rather just, it's not included. I will list it and I will tell them that it's not included. Okay. So just providing them with just more thorough and detailed information. So I think, so here's another one. I don't know how to pronounce that airline name. So most likely it would be probably the same to, so this is Ecolite. Okay, so if you're flying with a carry-on only, you don't want any flexibility, then you can get the Ecolite. Ecolite will allow for the carry-on, no checked bags. You can add on a checked bag. So I think someone asked that. Remember that if something says that it's not included or that you're not allowed to do it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're completely excluded from getting seat selection or a checked bag. It just means that it's not included in the fare that for the price tag, it's not included in the price. You have to pay extra. Okay. Meals and beverages on board are still free of charge. So no rebooking, no refunds. They do have seat reservations, so you can still reserve your seat, but for a fee. They can still get a checked bag for a fee. They can have more legroom, but for a fee. So you see how they're still able to get those things, but they have to just pay extra. So usually if I know that my client is particularly, is going to be traveling for an extended period of time and they're going to need a check bag, I will at least give them a range. Approximately check bags will be $50 to $75 or something like that. Sometimes prices are also going to vary depending on your destination. And one thing to note too, which I'll put it on here, I hope that it will transfer over to yours, but I'm going to put this here. Check bags for Spirit are limited to 40 pounds, not 50. If you want 50 pounds, you have to pay extra. And they're strict with it being 40 pounds. And I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but even at the 50-pound limit, I struggle. I am the person that always has to end up opening up their suitcase at the ticket counter and moving stuff out. It's embarrassing every single time, but, and it was a big struggle for me when we had to go on Spirit, just recently with the 40 pounds. So, but it is what it is. So, check bags are limited to 40 pounds with Spirit. I'm pretty sure, Frontier is the same. And they do have, Frontier and Spirit in particular, I have noticed that they have the little things like slots right at the gate to measure your bags. When I flew with both of them, let's see, yeah, less than 40 pounds. When I flew with both of them, they were checking like each person. They're very strict with it. So hopefully this transmits over to the copies that you saved, I would assume. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys, just to show you how I kind of gather this information when I'm looking for flights. Important information to share with your clients. And to be quite honest, it is a lot of info, but the more you do it, and if you get in the habit of every single time you're looking for a flight or every single time you're putting a package together, you pull up the airline's information, it's just going to stick in your head. And of course, if you're utilizing these airlines too, like I have flown with Spirit and Frontier before, I have flown with JetBlue several times, United, Southwest, Delta. So I'm familiar myself just in my experience. So if you're utilizing these airlines, plus also just doing your extra, just take the extra step. Just, it's important to know that, right? Because I have had people reach out to me just for general questions on airlines because they know I'm a travel agent, right? So they're coming to the source. They're like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. Let me ask her. So, it's just important just to kind of take the extra 5 minutes when you're doing the quote and just research it. So then that way you're not only gaining knowledge, but you're then also able to provide your client with that information too. And again, it all just comes down to the service that you're able to provide them versus the service that they're not going to receive when they're utilizing a third party. So I will go ahead and open it to questions now. Let me